Hello and good evening to all of you. I am Nicholas Milonni, and I'm here again with another video update for you on some very important recent affairs in U.S. politics. We have this article here by Newsweek. Actually, it was published yesterday. Donald Trump proposes new stimulus checks of up to $2,000 for Americans. President Donald Trump has said he is considering offering Americans stimulus checks of between $1,000 and $2,000 amounts from tariff revenues. Talking to One American News, OAN television network, in a one-on-one interview aired on Thursday, Trump was asked what he would do with the revenues generated from higher tariffs on imported goods to the U.S. We're going to do something. We're looking at something. Number one, we're paying down debt because people have allowed the debt to go crazy, he said. As it absolutely has. I mean, what are we up to now? 34 trillion, 35 trillion? Um, it's very, very high. And it's only gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And our politicians are being really irresponsible. Now, of course, you have to spend money to get stuff done, but we spend way too much and we aren't bringing in enough. So what we really need to do is bring in more money. But with growth, the kind of growth we have now, the debt is very little. You grow yourself out of that debt. It's not a question of paying it. You grow yourself out. He added, we'll pay back the debt, but we also might make a distribution to the people, almost like a dividend to the people of America. Asked about the size of these proposed rebate checks, Trump said that his team was thinking about maybe $1,000 to $2,000. Trump talked about the U.S. debt. How big is it right now? As of the end of September, the U.S. national debt accumulated over the nation's history was over 37.86 trillion. Geez, I was off by several trillion. According to data by the Treasury, that is the amount. This debt allows the federal government to pay for its activities and investment when revenues alone cannot cover them. Based on lifetime data from the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, it is already beyond 38.48 trillion. That is shocking and horrible. We really need to get back on track here. Really, seriously. Debt is probably one of the biggest concerns on most Americans' minds. I wonder if it wouldn't just be better to put all of this revenue towards debt rather than give Americans a stimulus check. And I want Americans to be good and happy and everything. I do. But, you know, would the money be better spent elsewhere? I don't know. I'm not against giving people a stimulus, but let's not get too carried away. Let's not just hand out free money willy-nilly. I'm not sure I support that, but it's kind of interesting nonetheless. Talking to OAN, Trump said that the national debt is not yet 38 trillion, but it will reach that amount in the future. However, the economic boost he expects is spurring from his policies, including sweeping tariffs on the country's trade partners, will allow the administration to lower the country's debt and share some of its revenues with U.S. citizens, he said. They're just starting to kick in, but ultimately your tariffs are going to be over $1 trillion a year, in my opinion, he said. The numbers we have now are bigger than they ever were. According to Fox Business, the country has generated roughly $215 billion in revenues from the Trump administration's new tariff policies since April. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good amount, and it's only been, well, what has it been? We're getting close to 6 months now since then. That's not too bad for 6 months. If we can make it go up, obviously it'll be better. But right now, it's not too bad. Experts, however, have warned that Trump's tax-cutting One Big Beautiful Bill, which he said on July 4th, could cost the country $3.4 trillion over the next 10 years and more than $4 trillion when accounting for additional interest owed on the national debt, based on estimates shared by the Bipartisan Policy Center. Is it really bipartisan? Probably not. Nothing these days is. This additional costs could partially offset the higher revenues Trump is boasting about. Even before the controversial bill was signed into law, the federal government was on track to spend $1.9 trillion more this fiscal year than it collected in revenue, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. I have to ask, what do we spend most of this money on? I think, well, I can't speak for all Americans, but I imagine most of us probably don't even know. I imagine it's probably a whole bunch of stuff we probably don't need. And I imagine it's a lot of stuff we could simply do without, so why do we still have it? I think we would do well to sort of put together some sort of cohesive set of information, which details all of our expenses and what they're for exactly. Um, because as American citizens, I don't really think we were super familiar with all that stuff. And I think it would be very good for us to educate ourselves in that regard because really this debt is a serious problem. Could Trump really redistribute tariff revenues to U.S. citizens? Well, sharing tariff revenues with U.S. citizens in the form of rebate checks, as mentioned by Trump in his interview with OAN, would require the approval of Congress. Maybe you could get that done. Back in July, Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri tried to pass a bill, the American Worker Rebate Act, to ensure U.S. citizens receive stimulus checks from tariff revenues. Like President Trump proposed, my legislation would allow hardworking Americans to benefit from the wealth that Trump's tariffs are returning to this country, he said in a statement this summer. Under Hawley's proposed bill, Americans would receive payments of at least $600 per adult and dependent, so $2,400 for a family of four. The bill would allow for payments to grow in size should revenues from tariffs increase over time. It is the policy of the United States to use revenue raised from tariffs applied on foreign imports to provide relief for the working people through immediate tax rebates, the bill reads. The payments would need to be made as rapidly as possible, and refunds should not be made after December 31st, 2026. Hawley's proposal has yet to pass Congress, and it is unclear whether the bill will receive enough support in the currently very divided Congress. When is it not very divided these days? Which this week failed to avert a government shutdown. Yeah, well, there you go. And it seems like we're always on the verge of a shutdown every single year now. I mean, this is just kind of how the game is played now. Now, I'm a big fan of tariffs because I want to bring manufacturing back here. But I also have to think to myself, would it be easier? And I'm not really sure of the answer, but I wondered to myself, we have a lot of made in America and companies here that already produce a lot of made in America products. Would it not be easier to simply build them up rather than trying to force all of these companies back? And I don't know. Maybe it is easier to just force Apple and all these other big companies to come on back and start making stuff here. But if it's like a clothing company, for example, maybe there are several ones we have here already that make American goods. Why not just build those guys up a little instead of trying to bring back Nike or whatever else? Um, maybe that's a good idea. I kind of feel, maybe this isn't my place, but I kind of feel betrayed by a lot of these companies as an American because I don't matter to them. Only their pocketbooks matter. And I kind of feel as though they have abandoned us. So I don't really want to buy their products even if they do come back. Or at least that's what part of me feels like. So it's an interesting thing to consider, and maybe it's worth looking into. Maybe the administration has already looked into that and deemed it's not really practical. I don't know, but maybe it's something to think about. Now, in terms of the recent government shutdown, it has continued on. We have this other article here. From ABC, Senate fails again to advance funding bill, shutdown likely to extend into next week. The Senate failed to pass government funding bills for the fourth time on Friday, which is, of course, yesterday, leaving the shutdown in effect likely through the weekend, with congressional leaders appearing to be in an impasse. Ahead of Friday's vote, Senate Majority Leader John Thune stood firm on the Senate floor and signaled his party's unwillingness to negotiate with Democrats over their demands in order to open the government back up. The shutdown needs to end sooner rather than later, and there's only one way out of it. Democrats need to vote for the clean, nonpartisan, continuing resolution sitting right there, Thune said. Minority Leader Schumer pointed a finger back at Republicans, saying on the Senate floor that the government remains closed because Republicans insist on threatening health care across the country. For illegal aliens, let's not kid ourselves. We all know what that's about. It's day 3 of the Trump shutdown, and the government remains closed because Donald Trump and Republicans insist on raising Americans' health care premiums and kicking millions off their insurance. Illegals. Again. Okay? That's not going to fly. In addition to the GOP-backed 7-week stopgap funding measures, the Senate voted on the Democrats' funding bill that includes health care provisions. Both bills failed, with no one changed their votes since the Senate last considered this bill on Wednesday. They were the last scheduled votes for Friday, and Thune has signaled he does not intend to hold votes over the weekend. Well, God forbid Congress does anything over the weekend. They only live, very nice, expensive lives, while the rest of us, well, many of us working paycheck to paycheck, but whatever. They got to have their weekends, I guess. Um, yeah. They were the last scheduled votes for Friday, and Thune signaled he does not intend to hold votes over the weekend. It is therefore all but certain that the government shutdown will drag on until at least Monday. There may be another vote on Monday. I'm not entirely sure about that. We'll have to see how things go. The House will not hold votes next week, even as the government shutdown continues, the chair announced Friday afternoon. This means the lower chamber will not hold votes until mid-October as the Senate works out its plan to fund the government. Republicans have repeatedly said they are willing to negotiate with Democrats on Affordable Care Act tax credits, but only when the government reopens. ABC News senior congressional correspondent Jay O'Brien pressed Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on Friday, asking if Democrats do not trust those assurances from the GOP. We don't view a government shutdown as leverage, said Jeffries, adding the Democrats need an ironclad legislative agreement to address the health care issues that we have raised. Meanwhile, Thune is continuing his effort to recruit more Democrats to join the GOP-backed funding bill. He put more pressure on Democrats during a Friday morning press conference. We have an opportunity to pick up a House-passed bill that, if it passes the Senate, will be sent to the White House, the President will sign it, and the government will reopen. It's that simple and straightforward, and that's what we're talking about. All we need is a handful more Democrats, Thune said. Well, how many is a handful? I mean, do we have an exact count? The majority leader said he hoped that Democrats have a chance to think about it, have a chance to think about their stance over the weekend. I don't know how many times you give them a chance to vote no, and hopefully over the weekend they'll have a chance to think about it. Maybe some of these conversations start to result in something to where we can start moving some votes and actually get this thing passed, Thune said Friday. But there's nothing to be gained at this point by negotiating something that there's nothing to negotiate. House Speaker Mike Johnson also would not commit to negotiating with Democrats on their $400 billion demand to extend the expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies scheduled to expire at the end of the year. Some of the issues that they're bringing to the table and they're demanding immediate, easy answers for are not easy answers, and they take a long time to deliberate. That is the process. This is a deliberative body, and a very large one, Johnson said. We can't snap our fingers, and he and I and two other leaders in a room go, oh, well, this is the resolution. That's not how it works. Asked Friday afternoon if President Trump is talking with Democrats to work to get them on board with the GOP bill, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Senate Republicans are speaking to moderate Democrats and that those conversations have become very serious. Asked Friday afternoon if President Donald Trump is talking with Democrats to work to get them on board, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Senate Republicans are speaking to moderate Democrats. Oh, that's the same paragraph, second time. Okay. My mistake. They put one paragraph after the other, and they're pretty much the same. That's strange. Well, whatever. The point is, government shutdown's continuing at least until Monday, and it's very unclear who's going to buckle first. It's probably going to be the Democrats, honestly, because I sure hope it is, because Republicans kind of have the leverage here. They got the majorities. They're kind of in control right now. It's gonna end up buckling soon, one way or the other, probably. I'm not really opposed to the government being shut down, quite frankly. That just means the government can't do what it usually does, which is mess things up. So even if it just remains shut down, I won't be a huge complainer about it. I know there are a lot of government employees who may be negatively impacted by this, and my sympathy goes out to them. But at the same token, I have to ask myself, what really is your job all about? And is it serving most Americans in a positive way? I don't know. I think probably some of them are not. And maybe it would be better to have you doing something else. Um, so I don't know. We're going to see how things play out. I just wanted to give a brief little update on the shutdown and where things are moving. It still remains to be unresolved, and it will be very interesting to see how things play out from here on out. We'll see what happens with the stimulus checks too. There was talk of it previously, and nothing really amounted of it. So we'll see. I'm not saying it's going to happen or not. We'll just have to pay more attention to it and see how things play out. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and put your comments in the comment section below. What do you think of the stimulus checks? Is it something you like, support? Do you think Americans need it? Do you think Americans should get it? Do you think that Americans would like to have it? And who do you think is most to blame for the shutdown? I would love to know in the comment section below, so please get down there, make your voices heard, and I will very, very enthusiastically read every single one of them. So thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.